But for the time being, we're joined by Laura Loomer, and this is a headline out of the Epoch Times. Florida congressional candidate Laura Loomer outraises incumbent Lois Frankel in third quarter. She's outraised, not only outraised the incumbent, she's outraised all the GOP candidates combined. Frankel, age 71, the incumbent Democrat, raised around $104,000 in the third quarter. Records show Loomer raised $154,000 in the third quarter, despite being without a platform on major social media websites. Laura, it's the comeback of all comebacks. The enemies of free speech say deplatforming works. Hasn't really worked on you, has it?
No, it's not really working. And thanks so much for having me on, Paul. It's a pleasure to be back on InfoWars. And, you know, when I filed my candidacy in my congressional race on August 2nd, people on the right and the left mocked me. People said, oh, ha, 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 this is just an attempt for Laura Loomer to get back on Twitter. She won't raise a dime. And not only have I raised more than a dime, but I raised more than all of my GOP primary opponents and the four-term Democrat incumbent who's best friends with Nancy Pelosi combined. And I did so while being banned on every single social media platform and while being completely defamed and maligned by the press. Every single week since I filed my candidacy, there have been articles in the local paper calling me a far-right member of the alt-right, you know, things that are just not true. They say I'm anti-Muslim. They say I'm a racist. They called me a troll and said that my candidacy had no legitimacy. But look, I'm on a mission to win, and I'm in this to win. And I am going to win and flip this district red. And when I get elected, I'm going to break up big tech.
Now, just to explain to people how you've done this, how have you whipped up this enthusiasm and raised such a substantial sum of money with no quote unquote mainstream social media presence? Is it just, you know, relentless campaigning, canvassing, doing interviews? How have you done it without the big networks, Twitter and Facebook?
Well, I'm working very hard. You know, people, believe it or not, people in this country won elections without social media, and politics is local. And the left and, you know, these fake news media reporters, they seem to think that the world revolves around Twitter. They seem to think that there is no life outside of Twitter and there is no life offline. But the fact of the matter is only a small portion of the country is using Twitter on a daily basis. And while it is a lot, and while a lot of discussion is taking place on Twitter, you have to go out and talk to people. You have to meet people. And the Twitter trolls and the left-wing media reporters aren't the people who are voting for me, right? There is a whole entire base of constituents. And so they can convince themselves that I'm not going to win, and they can convince themselves that I'm a loser, and they can, you know, trash me in their inner circles and get off on banning people, but they're not in my district. And I'm getting a lot of support from people in my district, including Democrats and independents who are absolutely appalled at what has happened to me. And, you know, censorship is totally un-American. The First Amendment and free speech is at the core of who we are as a nation, and it's what separates us as Americans and what makes the United States of America the greatest country on earth. And, you know, when I'm elected to Congress, and I will be elected to Congress, I'm going to fight for all Americans and their free speech, not just Republicans, but Democrats as well, because that's what being an American is. It's about standing up for speech that you disagree with, even, you know, even if you don't like the person who is saying that speech, for the sake of having a diverse array of thoughts and conversation. And so I'm really excited, and I'm looking forward to continuing to outraise my opponents. And I'm really looking forward to meeting more of my constituents and shocking the nation and shocking big tech and flipping this district red. And if you want to be a part of my historic campaign, you can go to LauraLoomerForCongress.com and you can support me. It's a grassroots initiative, so every dollar counts, whether it's $1, $5, $10, $20, or the max donation for an individual of $5,600. We can all make a difference. And, you know, you have to be a United States citizen to donate, but you know, regardless of where you are in the world, you can share my links and post it all over social media, since I can't.
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers about the number of active Americans on Twitter a few weeks ago. I think it came down to about 10%. Only about 10% of Americans are actually active on Twitter, and of course, only a fraction of those are actually going to be politically engaged. So it really is It really is a small bubble when you extrapolate it out to the total population. Should you win, though, and obviously it's going to be a task, I'm going to get onto that in a minute. What measures are you going to take against big tech giants who banned you? Are you going to go down the Elizabeth Warren route of trying to break them up, or are you just going to apply Section 230 or amend Section 230 to make them legally culpable for what users post on their websites? What route are you going to take in your action against big tech?
Well, that's a great question. And look, the fact is that we already have laws on the books. We don't necessarily need to create new laws or legislation to deal with big tech and the tyrants who control these companies. I think that we all know that there are two sets of rules in this country as to whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. And if a Republican were to lie to Congress, they would be jailed. They would be locked up for committing perjury. And we have the evidence to show that Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg and Sundar Pichai all committed perjury when they lied to Congress, when they testified under oath and said that they were not censoring conservatives and trying to influence and interfere in U.S. elections. We've caught them on hidden camera. Project Veritas has the tapes, right? We have statements from Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg himself. All you have to do is really watch the Joe Rogan interview, and Jack Dorsey, has perjured himself time over and again. I mean, he told Joe Rogan that social media is a human right. So by his own words, his own statements, he's committed millions of human rights violations by banning people. You have executives caught on camera at Google and Twitter admitting to Veritas undercover reporters, where I used to work. Yeah, we censor conservatives. Yeah, we censored Laura Loomer. Yeah, we're censoring President Trump. So as a member of Congress, I'm going to make sure that Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg are jailed, because they deserve to go to jail because they have committed perjury. And it's time that we uphold the law equally, because as Nancy Pelosi always says, nobody is above the law. And you know what? I agree with Nancy Pelosi on that. So let's hold Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckerberg, and Sundar accountable.
Yeah, you mentioned Pichai there. He got up in front of Congress and said Google doesn't manually intervene, that they're non-partisan. Google also came out with a statement at the time, quote, "Google has never manipulated or modified the search results or content in any of its products to promote a particular political ideology." On its face, a bald-faced lie. They amended the search results on YouTube days before the referendum on banning abortion in Ireland to make the anti-abortion results, to bury the anti-abortion results, and to make the pro-abortion results higher in the search results. That's a direct example of them manipulating their own algorithm to swing the result of a referendum. We've also seen it elsewhere. The very fact that they promote authoritative sources. Who is authoritative? CNN, ABC News, CBS, anyone who toes the line. So they've been caught doing it over and over again. When we get back after the break, I want to talk about how you're going to win this race and what you plan to do campaign-wise to be successful. This is the Alex Jones Show, live Infowars.com. We'll be back. We are live with Laura Loomer. The website is lauraloomercongress.com. Go there and donate. I'm going to ask Laura about her lawsuit against Facebook later on. $3 billion, which is 5% of their entire net worth. We're going to get into that. Basically, everybody who helped Trump get elected was punished in one way or another, weren't they, after 2016? Whether it was lawsuits, whether it was mass social media banning, whether it was, in fact, jail time for some people. I would say that Laura, as I said at the start of this interview, has made the comeback of all comebacks. Many people reacted to those bans by just going behind paywalls and so forth. Laura said, no, I'm going to get back at you by actually running for Congress, winning and changing the law. Now, Laura, as far as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, they can't prevent elected members of Congress from having a social media presence. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But if you win, do you think they'll let you back on?
Well, they should have already let me back on. And this is what's so egregious about it, Paul, is that I am a declared candidate now outperforming the sitting four-term Democrat incumbent who's best friends with Pelosi, okay? And I don't have social media. So I did all this while having no social media. I can't use PayPal for my campaign. I can't use Twitter. I can't use Facebook. I don't have anything. I don't have Instagram. And every other candidate in this country has access to all those platforms. I'm the only candidate in this country running for office who is completely denied equal access to the internet, which has a monetary value. And I would argue that this is an FEC violation, because what you have here is essentially an in-kind contribution from these big tech social media companies to the Democrat Party. And I don't know why the Republican Party or the Republican Party of Florida hasn't filed a massive lawsuit against these companies or filed an FEC complaint, because this is going to affect fundraising for all Republican candidates across the country, because we're being shadow banned, those who have social media. I don't have any. And think of all the millions of dollars in money that Republican candidates across the board are missing out on due to social media censorship. So this is going to have serious effects on the election. It is a form of election interference. And we've heard the Democrats try to derail our country with this actual conspiracy theory of Russian interference. But, the Russians have nothing on big tech. And that is why I truly believe that big tech ought to be the #1 campaign issue, even for President Donald Trump, because it doesn't matter what we talk about, whether it's immigration, abortion, the economy, guns. If you are silenced and your voice is suppressed by these fascists in big tech, then you can't talk about these other issues. You can't talk. You can't talk. So we really need to do something about it. And I don't know why people like Roger Stone and General Flynn are being, threatened with being imprisoned for many years to come, and having to sell their homes in order to pay for their legal fees, when people like Jack Dorsey, Zuckerberg, and Sundar Pichai are getting away with crimes. They lied to Congress. And so when I'm elected, like I said, I'm going to make sure that the law is upheld equally. And I do believe that they need to be prosecuted for committing perjury. And another thing, too, you mentioned my lawsuit. In Facebook's response to my defamation lawsuit, they admitted they perjured themselves even more, because they said that they're a publisher. Well, they testified under oath and said that they're a platform. So what is it? Are you a platform? Are you a publisher? And so if they truly are a publisher, then it should open the floodgates for every American who has been wrongfully terminated by Facebook to sue them. But what we need to understand here is that Facebook is trying to gaslight the press and gaslight the judges by bringing the Section 230 argument into my defamation lawsuit, because I'm not suing for being banned. I sued Facebook for defamation because you and I were both defamed, Paul. They banned us, and then they said that we were dangerous individuals. And if you look at the classification and the breakdown for what it means to be a dangerous individual, you're either a terrorist
and child sex traffickers, right?
Or a sex trafficker or a serial killer. And then on top of that, I remember it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I get a message from you on WhatsApp, and you're like, "Oh my God, they want us dead." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And you told me to click the link. And they literally declared open season on our lives. They said that it was okay to post death threats against me and you because we were dangerous individuals. And they did that the day that I filed my $3 billion lawsuit. So Facebook is a bully. They think that as a form of retaliation, they can just say, go murder Laura Loomer and Paul Joseph Watson. If they're going to take legal action against us, then we're going to declare that it's okay to murder them. And so that's why, I amended my lawsuit, and now it's amended to include damages for them inciting violence against my life. And my lawyers just about 4 days ago, they filed a response to Facebook's motion to have my case dismissed. And I do believe that this is going to go to trial. It already has a date set for next October, 3 weeks before my election here in Florida. So you're invited. Alex Jones is invited. And on top of that lawsuit, I also have a case that is going to be heard in the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. That is an antitrust case. And so hopefully we can get all types of patriots from across this country who have been banned to show up to the DC Circuit Court of Appeals when my lawyer and I get to deliver our oral appeal, because it's going to be historic, and I'm willing to take this all the way to the Supreme Court need be. And, for anyone out there who thinks that one person can't make a difference, I want you to know that, I'm one person, and I'm taking on big tech, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it no matter how much people mock me or how much they try to shut me down.
Yeah, just to remind people, this is a few months ago. Facebook literally updated their terms of service to include language where they said, it's not allowed to violently threaten anyone on our platform unless we've defamed them, basically, as a dangerous individual, a dangerous person. And then it's completely fine to target these people with death threats and to actually organize violence against them. They had to remove it a couple of days later, but as he said, it was out there for anyone to see, completely defamatory. Going back to your campaign, though, this seat in South Florida, it's considered safe for Democrats. That's what the media says anyway. They voted 39% for Hillary in 2016.
It's not.
Frankel ran unopposed in 2018. How are you going to flip the seat?
Well, it's a D+9 seat. So Frankel ran unopposed because there wasn't anybody who was probably willing to give her the fight that she should have against her. So look, I wouldn't say that I'm a typical candidate, right? And for anybody who has been following me over the last few years prior to me being banned, if there's one thing to know about me, it's that I accomplished the impossible. I accomplished that which people say can't be done, whether it's putting illegal aliens on Nancy Pelosi's lawn or dropping Twitter stock by 8% and handcuffing myself and trending #1 multiple times. I mean, confronting Hillary Clinton and James Comey at their book signing. I am able to do that which your regular average person, probably couldn't do. And so I'm not going to give away my campaign strategy because, the left doesn't deserve to know my game plan. But just know that on election day, they're going to be saying the words, Congresswoman Laura Loomer. You'll see.
All right, Laura, stay there. We'll do one more quick segment on the other side. I also want to ask you about if there's any pushback from the GOP establishment. Of course, you're running against 5 other Republican candidates in this race. Also want to ask you about the psychological impact of being basically one of the biggest victims of social credit score USA with your banning, which is not just, restricting you from social media use. This is what people don't understand. You're literally, when you do that, cutting someone else from the rest of humanity when you withdraw their access to what has become the new town square, the public commons. We'll be back with Laura Loomer, Infowars.com. Don't go away. We are back with Laura Loomer for Congress.com. Of course, banned by Instagram, banned by Facebook, banned by Twitter. And the point is, the internet is now basically the public commons. It is the new town square. Banning somebody from those platforms is more than just censorship. In my eyes, it is a form of psychological torture. You're literally cutting someone else from the rest of humanity. And we know from the Chinese example, the social credit score, where it's going. Bank accounts being deplatformed, banned. We've already had that in the US to some extent. Not being able to buy plane and train tickets. This is where it's going. It's going into a very dark direction. Laura, you're one of the primary victims of this social credit score USA tyranny. Despite your success with fundraising for this campaign, out fundraising the incumbent Democrat there in South Florida, just tell us briefly about, some of the more personal life struggles and the psychological impact of being banned by all these different companies, by all these different platforms.
Yeah, it's a really good question and something that nobody really talks about. And look, I'm not going to lie and pretend like it's been easy. It's been really hard. And you of all people know, I mean, when I got banned, the day I got banned, I came on InfoWars and everybody saw me crying. And just like you were talking beforehand, the left that likes to talk about helping people and how you shouldn't bully people online and how bad it is for mental health, what did they do? They plastered that interview and they mocked me until it went viral. And the Young Turks were showing me on screen crying because my bank shut me down too. I mean, to the point where, I can't even get a cab or anything. And they're trying to mock me. And I didn't do anything wrong. I tweeted Ilhan Omar was anti-Jewish, and that resulted in me being banned everywhere. And how would they like it if they were stranded in a cab in New York City and they couldn't pay for it because Chase Bank shut off their bank card and banned them from their online banking? We're talking about real life serious implications. And yeah, look, I spent a lot of time online, and that was my job as an investigative journalist. And some of my closest friends are people who I met on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And when they shut me off, I wasn't able to communicate with them. It cut off my ability to communicate with my family. I was communicating with some of my family members on Facebook, and it makes you feel very lonely. And for a time, I did feel very down and depressed about it. But you can't just wallow in sadness, and you can't allow them to win. And that's what they want. They want you to feel so helpless and alone, and that's why they shut people off, because they hope that they can ban you and silence you and make you go crazy or think that you're alone to the point where you just give up. And yeah, like I said, it's definitely hard some days, and I feel really lonely most of the time. But I know that not many people would be able to do what I'm doing, and it takes a special kind of person who is able to handle a lot. And I know that this is my struggle on to fight, and my battle on behalf of everybody who is being persecuted by big tech and the cancel culture left. And so I'm willing to endure a lot of this pain and suffering that I've had to deal with, because I know that I have the truth on my side, I have God on my side, and I have the American people on my side. And I'm going to win, and I'm going to fight for all Americans, right? Not just the people here in District 21. I'm fighting for everybody. And that's one of the main reasons why I decided to run for Congress too, is because when I was banned and when Chase Bank shut down my online account, I contacted my representative, who is Lois Frankel, and I asked her for help, and she wouldn't help me. And here I am, I had millions of followers, and nobody has helped me. Nobody has helped Alex Jones, and we're international figures, right? And I thought, what on earth would the average American do if what has happened to me has happened to them? And so I don't want what has happened to me to happen to anybody else here. I don't want what has happened to you or Alex Jones or Gavin McGinnis or Tommy Robinson and Milo Yiannopoulos to happen to anybody else. Not here, not in the UK, not in Hong Kong, nowhere. And so I'm running to make sure that that your rights are protected. And just the other day, I got a letter from a man in Hong Kong, and he said that he was a protester and that Hong Kong protesters are looking up to me. And he actually mentioned you in the letter. I'll send you a screenshot of it. And he said that they are looking at people like me and you as symbols of hope for them in their struggle against the communist Chinese. And so that's what keeps me going on the days when I feel really down and out. That's what keeps me going on days when I feel kind of sad about being banned and shut down, is that there are people all around the world in worse situations than mine who are hoping that I pull through so that they can too.
Inspiring stuff. Lora Loomer, going to leave it there. LoraLoomer4Congress.com. Go there, donate to Lora's campaign. Absolutely amazing efforts with the fundraising. Go and support Lora Loomer for Congress at that website. We're going to wrap it up there. Thanks for joining us, Lora Loomer.
Thanks for having me.